We are a Bullhorn shop. We've been on Bullhorn for years, and I'll tell you, but if I could look into our database, it would just be a train wreck. It would have data placed in all the wrong fields. In fact, I know for a fact, if I were to look inside of our database, that I would find people just take shortcuts, and they would be dropping data in like a notes field and just keeping like an entire interview in one little summary field. And then, you forget about that person 6 months later, you want to find them and you can't. And it becomes a real problem. So there's been so much talk about, I want to automate, I want to bring my team, I want to bring my staff up to this newest style of recruiting. And I've spent a lot of time interviewing companies. And one thing is very clear, you have to kind of pick the platform you're going to work on and then start with baby steps. You can't boil the ocean. You have to then, I think, clean your data, particularly if you have a lot of historical information that you want to use. And then you work on the different tech stack options that are out there. The problem is, if you're in a company when you've got multiple leaders and you've got multiple divisions, multiple branches, it's not just as simple as you as an independent entrepreneur deciding to do this. You have to go through some change management. There's a lot of things that you've got to consider. And I've gotten to the point where I want to talk to an expert. I want to bring people in that I know what they're doing. Travis, do you know anybody that knows what they're doing? Wait a minute, that'd be you.
I know a couple people, Tony.
You know a couple people. Good to see you again, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
How is the spring treating you down in Florida there?
Whew, it was a hot one this weekend. Felt like summer already. 90 degrees, sunny, nice and humid. So it was wasn't ready for it yet, but it's coming quick.
You're pretty much there now. You're pretty much there. It's what is it called when I've got friends in Florida? They have the pool, but then you can see like the glass enclosure around the pool. What is that thing called? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I'm not. I'm not sure exactly what.
In Florida, like any pool you go to in Florida is inside of a glass house.
Oh, we have screens.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of screen enclosures. Yeah, but not. Yeah. It's
it's like because there's too many bugs.
Well, there's bugs. Anything that crawls or stings or flies, we have down here. So it's definitely
that's pretty much. And the gators, everything. You got to see this is how you keep everything. You keep everything out. Well, my point is, we are now at the point where it's time to upgrade. It's time to get the right HR or tech stack added in to our environment. Okay. For example, we are a Bullhorn shop.
Yep.
And, you and I have been talking kind of offline. You guys are obviously instead of me telling people what you do, why don't you tell everyone, specifically what it is that you guys do at PARQA?
It's PARQA. So
there you go. See, I've already. So if you don't know what the screens are called, I don't even know the name of your company properly. So this is a fantastic start.
No, so we are a technology consulting company specific to staffing and recruiting that focuses on the Bullhorn and Salesforce ecosystem. So in a big industry out there, we've picked kind of the two enterprise level platforms and chosen those as our niche to continue to work forward and help advance companies here in our industry.
I think it's really smart because those are the biggest platforms. I think you might agree or disagree, but I think Salesforce is probably extremely sophisticated, where Bullhorn has kind of gone out and purchased a lot of their technology. They've been a pretty acquisitive company.
Agreed. Bullhorn has their core platform. They have done a lot of acquisitions. They actually have an offering on the Salesforce platform. I don't think a lot of people realize that. But they do have Bullhorn Recruitment Cloud, which was previously Bullhorn for Salesforce. But Bullhorn has been around for, I think they just celebrated 25 years, I believe.
That's
um,
crazy.
and they are the industry giant. And but I will say Salesforce is paying attention. And I actually was talking to uh, SVP of product over at Bullhorn last week on a podcast style scenario. And it used to be Bullhorn or Salesforce, and now you have the option of Bullhorn and Salesforce. So the changes and the advancements that are coming along are exciting.
Oh, Bullhorn and Salesforce. That's interesting. Well, I wanted to kind of steer our conversation today in for the Bullhorn user, and I think maybe that's just selfishly for me too, because I'm in a mid-sized staffing company. I've got a leadership team I'm part of. We've got multiple branches, all across the country, and it's anytime people think about going through any kind of a change, it's like put together presentation, so on and so forth, and it's like trying to move a Titanic. And you've worked with so many companies helping them go through this transition. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain today. So you're talking to, for example, um, agency owners today. You're talking to maybe advanced users of Bullhorn, and they want to make the transition, but they look at their kind of where they are. They're at a standstill in terms of automation. How do we go from standing still to crawling, and maybe by the end of our conversation we can see how we can be walking? Like, what's practically, how do we get this started?
Well, I would say strategy is the key word, right? So everybody wants AI, everybody wants automation. They'll tell you they're doing AI, they'll tell you they're doing automation. But the reality is you have to step back and take a look at your tech stack as it sits today, understand what the company goals are, and then set a strategy for how you're going to get there. And once you have that strategy, then you look at the tools you can implement, whether it's Bullhorn automation, whether it's text kernel with its new AI features. Bullhorn does offer a lot, and they're making a lot of advancements here quickly from an AI standpoint. But I think there's this rush to your point. Like, you don't go from crawling to running the 100-meter sprint in the Olympics overnight, right? You have to take some time and step back. One of the things you mentioned in kind of your prelude was data's everywhere, right? Like data cleansing, data normalization, understanding where that's at, right? There are some things with semantic search and other things now, but you know, AI and all of these GPTs, they're all relying on data. So if your data's a mess, the foundation of your house is cracked when you start, right? We want to start with that solid foundation. Let's build on top of it. And to your point, crawl, walk, run, go in that scenario, in that sequence, so that you make sure you're doing things the right way.
The more I look at this space, the more confused I get at times, because I tend to think the way you do, and that's, you know, have your strategy in place of what you want to accomplish, but then you need to clean your data. But now I've heard people say, well, you don't really need to worry about your data. Let's just worry about the front end. Let's just deal with everything that's coming in at the top of the funnel. I mean, what do you say to that?
Um, well, data's gold, right? Like, if you look at the way job boards are working, if you look at the way LinkedIn just changing their pricing, all of this information that you've acquired over the years, I mean, this is the value of your company, right? So just saying, hey, let's go acquire new data, or let's just go spend more money on the front end, you still have this mess in the back, right? And at some point you have to address it. So in my personal opinion, you address what you have first. I talk to lots of companies that go back and they do assessments. Hey, how much did we pay for Travis as a candidate, right? Well, Travis was in our database 6 times. We talked to him 6 months ago, but Tony, the recruiter, went right out to LinkedIn or went into a job board, paid to acquire him his information again, right? And then we go and we place him, and you look back, and it's, the cost of acquisition for a candidate that's already sitting in your database can be anywhere from $1,000 to $4,000 or $5,000, right? So it's easy to say, hey, let's just move forward, like forget the past, but cleaning up that core is still super important.
Yeah, that to me is the key there, because if your recruiters are going to LinkedIn or they're going to Indeed, chances are you might already have that candidate because you've been in business. This is probably not the first time you've run that particular search for that skill set. I mean, yeah, I guess you could think of a scenario where this is a totally new position or a new industry or something that you're breaking into and you don't have anybody. But to me, I think it's the gold mine is what you're already sitting on.
Correct. And you think about with automation, with AI, with the new agentic, you hear the term agentic, right?
Yeah,
Agents,
agentic
right?
AI.
Agentic AI, that's working based on data, right? So if you want to create an agent to nurture your database, but all of your information's outdated, the numbers are bad, the emails are bad, you don't have any of that information in there, then what are you setting that agent loose on, right? And so that's where that data piece of it is super important. And there are companies out there now, like we partner with one, Candidate IQ, right? And they have the tools to go in and in the background help you with um, keeping that data clean. I know there's others out there in the marketplace as well, but there are actually services out there that real time will keep your Bullhorn database updated and clean.
Shout out to Andrew Burnham. I hopefully everyone heard that episode. We had that. We had them on here, and that was one of my first looks into the importance of getting that database cleaned up. So
Yeah,
let's kind of
we
go.
have multiple clients. I was going to say we have multiple clients that we work with directly with Andrew and team, and Andrew and team do the cleansing, and then we do the automation strategy on the back end after that to help. So they're getting their data clean, and then PARQA comes in and helps set up those automations and those workflows within Bullhorn Automation to then act on it. So when you think about kind of where we play in that space, we do a lot on the Salesforce side, but we do have a ton of experience with automation design and candidate experience and client experience. And that's the other thing too, when you look at, once you get your data clean, your automation strategy, right? It's not, I mean, don't get me wrong. Welcome to your first day. Happy birthday. It's been 30 days. Like those are all great, but those are table stakes. Those are basic automations, right? How do you create that experience for the candidates that keeps them coming back? And when they need or looking for an opportunity, they're coming to you, right? They've had that experience. They haven't been ghosted by you. You're constantly checking in with them. So that strategy and that design, that experience design is kind of the roots of Park and where we came from.
Yeah, and that's one of the areas that I really want to, talk to you about. So imagine you're a light industrial staffing company, just traditional commercial staffing, multiple branches, which is what we are all throughout the Southeast. And you're putting majority of your people, you're going to work there hourly. They're working the line, and the staffing coordinators that are sitting in the branches, right? They get an order for uh, 25 people. Sometimes it's a new client they've acquired, and the contracts are signed, and you've got to add over 100 people. And it just creates a massive, it's like a snake trying to, you've seen those snakes that just try to eat something whole, and it's just
Yep.
massive. There needs to be a more efficient way to go about doing this. And I'd love to hear your opinion. How would you tackle a situation like that?
Yeah, I think that's where your automation comes in, whether it's through SMS messaging, whether it's through emails, almost an omni-channel approach, right? Like even phone calls. So being able to, with speed and efficiency, reach out to a large number of potential candidates. So I worked for 6 years for a company called Modus, which is now a Codis, part of a Deco group. And I remember that was one of the initiatives when I was there. That was 10 years ago. Well, when I started there 10 years ago. But one of those was, we did have a Deco general staffing is very similar to that. So very high volume. We had some large manufacturers and facilities that they had to recruit high levels of candidates for. So I remember, when that was kind of a pipe dream of, hey, how do we SMS message people quickly? Right. And you think about it now, that's just one aspect of it. You can email them, you can set up auto dialers, you can set up auto screening now as we talk about AI and automation and the things that are starting to be more prevalent in our industry. I sat through an AI summit earlier this year, and they had all these new products do kind of speed pitches. And I think 12 out of the 20 were screening tools. So I think that's kind of that next kind of hot button right now that we're seeing in the industry is the different screening tools and the ability to, think about it, Tony. Like when you need 100 people, the last thing you need is your recruiter screening somebody for 10 minutes to find out they weren't, like, you have to get them to a certain point in that
Ex-
scenario where the time they're spending actually on the phone or talking to somebody is as valuable as it can be, and taking them to that next step to getting them to be one of those 100 people that you put out on billing. So just thinking through that process of, hey, we're not going to start calling just thousands of people to try to get to 100. Like, let's click the button and let's let technology go and work for us. Let's get it down to 200. Then let's do our screening. Let's pick the best ones and get them out there for this project.
Yeah, that to me is the productivity killer, is that you have however many hundreds of people that might apply to a job. Now, of course, if you're on the direct hire side, I know what you're saying. You're saying you don't get that many people that apply to a job, and I understand that. But the fact that, the fact does remain, if you're working at the bottom of the pyramid in direct hire, anywhere in accounting or finance or sales, you're going to have more volume. Are going to get a lot of people flooding in, and you can spend all your time trying to contact those first 25, 50 people, but maybe it's the 75th, the 78th, the 89th person that you really need to be talking to, and you just never get to them. Or by the time you do get to them, they've taken another job. There's all kinds of scenarios there. So I'm a firm believer in creating a system. This is what I would love to see. You run an ad on Indeed and you end up with, let's just say, 100 resumes. I want an automation tool that can take those 100 resumes and do two things: run them through a screener of some sort,
Yep.
and have it deliver back to the recruiter its best estimate on these are the people you should be talking to,
Yep.
and also screen everybody for these are the types of people you typically talk to anyway.
Yep.
And anybody that looks like is someone that you're either going to talk to for this job or another job or previous jobs, let's flip them over into Bullhorn and normalize it. So I don't want you to lose those people, because what happens now, Travis, is the people just sit inside Indeed. There's too many. What are they going to do? Sit there and download and parse them over, download and parse? That seems very inefficient.
Yeah, and there are tools out there that do that for you today, that will score your candidates for you, that will, based on certain criteria, that can do that for you. So they'll say, hey, here's your best possible options, or what we think are the best possible ones. I actually saw a demo of that early last week. It was pretty wild, right? So,
Well, if you don't mind me asking, what company was it? You want to
this
mention it?
one's not on the market yet. They were kind of giving
Oh,
what they're building in the background. So I would
nice.
love to give them a plug, but not quite ready for that yet.
Not yet. That's fine. That's
But they're
fine.
not the only one, though. There are other ones out there, and I don't know. There's a few that do it. So I think
Is
that,
is that already built into the Bullhorn marketplace though, or no?
yeah, there are a couple marketplace partners that are able to do that. And I do think also too, with text kernels, some of their AI stuff they're doing, some of that is built into that as well. So there is the ability to do that internally. And just going back a little bit, what I'd say too is, um, staffing's a contact sport, right? I tell people that all the time, right? Whether you're perm, whether you're light industrial, whether you're, regardless of what vertical you're in, it's still a contact sport. So staying in touch with folks, that just constant nudge or reminder that you're out there and what's available. So while I do think the volume is much higher at a light industrial firm versus direct hire on maybe a more, a technology or finance and accounting, I still think it's important. And then, to your point, getting those resumes from your Indeed ad, scoring them, then taking those and dropping them into your candidate campaign or journey through Bullhorn Automation, or if you use another tool, right? But that's where having that experience, that candidate experience built out, comes into play, because now you're automating it. So you say, hey, here's my job ad. Here's 200 people. I've scored them. Here's my top 100. Boom, we're going to pop them into Bullhorn. We're going to pop them into this automation sequence. Off they go. The other thing I would say too is, you're not going to place every one of them. And even your number 2 and number 3 candidates sometimes are really good. Historically, those people just get lost, right? Hey, we filled the job. They took Tony. Don't worry about Travis and Joe and Sally and Bob, right? Like, we'll figure out next time we have a job for them, right? That experience, right? How do you stay in touch? Hey, Tony, sorry you came in second place on this one, but we want to stay in touch for future jobs, right? And I think you hear a lot about ghosting, but depending on the vertical, right? Like light industrial, when you have hundreds of candidates, it's
Everyone
impossible.
is getting
It's
ghosted.
impossible. Yeah, it's impossible to stay in touch with everybody from just the human element. It's impossible. You
And
would not be able to accomplish anything in your job. You would be stuck doing follow up. That would be your entire existence.
yeah, and if you if you tried to hire someone just to do that, you would lose them because they'd lose their mind.
Correct.
Just doing it on the regular. The other thing I love about the automation and the idea here is that you can have, and this is in my case, in my team's case for marketing, we've put a lot of great resources onto our blog site,
Yep.
and there's so much content there for the job seeker, and by industry, and then we've got content for the employers by industry for HR. There is so much. We keep our podcast there. It's literally chock full of great content. And I remember when I was running a desk years ago, I was always looking for ways to take pertinent, relevant content and send it to a CFO,
Yep.
send it to someone that I wanted to work with. Thinking about you, I read this article, and it's that, as you said, context sport. I love when you say that. I just, you've got the Jaguars poster in the background. We just finished the NFL draft. I'm thinking contact physically, literally, but when you're picking up the phone and calling people, it feels like a contact sport. It takes a lot of work, a lot of effort.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I mean, so I got into staffing, just kind of get a little background here. So my older brother um, actually created an ATS about 20 years ago. I got into staffing with him. He wrote his own ATS system. It's still out there today. But then I got recruited to go work.
Let's give him a plug. What is that?
Yeah. So it's called Bright Move ATS. He's based down here in St. Augustine, but working with my older brother David. He was working at Bank of America, ended up being on their vendor list. I got into staffing with him, got recruited away to go work for Robert Half. And you talk about content. I just remember those early days that Robert Half was, dial, MPC. That was content. Was who do you have available versus
Most placeable candidate, folks. If you're listening and you're not in the industry, first of all, God bless you. MPC, most placeable candidate. It's a sales tactic that you use. You take a great candidate and you market them to all your prospects that you're not working with in hopes that they say, "Oh gosh, you know what? I do need that person."
Right. And I just think about what you were saying earlier with content, with blogs, with videos and things like that, and you have them for candidates and clients, right? And so if you put yourself on the other side of that, particularly if you're a client, if all I do is just pepper you every 3 days, Tony, and say, "Hey, I got 3 great candidates. Could you use one of these people?" Eventually, you're gonna be like, "All right, Travis, quit freaking emailing me or quit calling me, dude." Right?
Yeah,
Versus
or
I have industry. Yeah.
Spam me. You're gonna throw me into spam, and then I'm really toast.
Right. Versus if you have content out there and you bring value to your vertical and value to them, right? And I just think that piece of it, it's all part of the experience. And the reality is there's hundreds and thousands of staffing firms out there right now. And we're talking about technology and automation. I do think part of what's going on right now after the last couple of years being tough is, there's kind of a race to who can be most efficient. And as you think about that, right, there's people sitting on the sidelines. There's people that are saying, nope, I'm going to be the bleeding edge of this. But then there's this whole core of people that are trying to make moves, right? And I think the people that are sitting on the sidelines watching, I think are going to find themselves in deep trouble here pretty quick, right? Because there's some.
That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, and it's happening. It's happening in the background, and it's going to be in the forefront very, very quickly.
And that's really the message I'm really trying to deliver to the marketplace is this. I don't think this is one of those where you want to sit on the sidelines. I feel like I think other people have said this, but if you don't think anybody in your organization is already using AI, well, there's two things. One, most people are using AI. They're using Grok, they're using Chat, they're using one of the other tools that are out there. You may not think of it as automation and AI, but that's exactly what it is. right?
Yeah.
It'll rewrite a resume. It'll rewrite a job description. It'll do a deep dive research. We all know. I don't need to give everyone a you know, we all know how to use Grok and such. I use it every day for different things. Now, if you have people in your company that aren't using it, then perhaps your company is extremely unsophisticated.
Agreed.
And that should be worrisome too, I think.
Yeah, and I laugh sometimes, right? Because you see organizations, they'll use ChatGPT to rewrite the job description. Well, if the candidate's savvy, the candidate pops their resume into ChatGPT, gives it the job description, and says, "Hey, tailor my resume towards this." So there is this kind of dance there, right? Where it's like, "Oh, I use ChatGPT to write my job description." The candidate's like, "Cool, I use ChatGPT to write my resume," right? And then there's still, we talk about the contact side of it. There's still that part of getting in there and figuring out who's who and what's what, right? So I think
That's
that's where
funny.
the value of
That's
the
funny.
experienced recruiter comes into play.
You're like, oh, I'm so clever. I've just redone this job description. And the candidate's like, I'm so clever. I just redid. So you have all these people that match
Yeah.
and they're really not a fit. Yeah,
Oh, I've
that's
seen it.
probably
I've seen it where it's like, hey, this is going to go through a, um, you know,
a,
a
a
screener,
test. Yep.
ATS, right? Like make this optimize
Mm.
it for keyword screening, right? People don't think about that. So many resumes get missed in systems based on keywords versus now you can leverage. There's so many possibilities out there, right? And I think most companies are still in that generative AI side of things. Whereas when we go back to that data piece earlier, right? If you have clean data and a good system, you can start doing predictive AI, right? You can start looking ahead at things. So I think that's where, I don't know. I've been at PARQA for 2.5 years. When I got here, it was digital marketing, right? And then it was automation, then it was AI, now it's agents. And I look back and I still think a lot of people are doing automation and they're just starting to do automation. They're calling it AI, right? Because it's automated and they don't have to do it. But there's still a big gap there. Like I think that automation space got missed by a lot of people, and there's still so much opportunity in there as you start to factor the AI into it.
Yeah. God, I had a great question for you and it just floated away. Um, think of something brilliant to say. I had a great follow-up question and it like got vaporized.
No, I mean, to your point, right? If you're not looking into it, if you're not at least exploring it and trying to understand what the future of your organization looks like, you should be a little concerned and you should figure out when to set that meeting on your calendar, right? Like you have to be looking as you to the future, what that could look like, at least having conversations about it at this point, because I do think, as I said a minute ago, those that are really investing in that future forward technology are going to be light years ahead very quickly.
I agree. Okay, so the universe has brought the question back to me. Thank goodness. I have it now. We're not going to edit that out. This is real life.
Absolutely.
This is how it goes. This is how it goes. In your experience in working with the different companies that are using the different type of screener tools,
Yep.
what feedback are you getting that candidates either are accepting of the AI screener and kind of are we getting pushback? Because I've seen some tools where they can even do a complete interview,
Right.
questions loaded up, and then it comes back to the recruiter and they've got a score now and they can move forward. What's your take
Yeah,
on this?
I think it's been adapted. I mean, I do think we're in a generation now that's used to technology, that's used to AI, that's used to the Uber experience, the DoorDash experience, right? Airbnb, like they're much more adept to using the tools and the tech. So I think it has been from a standpoint. You're always going to have detractors. I don't care what you do, right? There's going to be people. Oh no, I want to talk to somebody in person, but the ones that are using it have seen good results with it. Um, like you said, I mean, it cuts out the time. They're able to get a quick synopsis of that person from the feedback. I've seen tools where they're able to share that, then take that interview and share it directly with the hiring manager, right? So I think even that, as you continue to get into those tools, right, you start looking at what's the next iteration, what's the next iteration, next. We do a lot with portals on the Salesforce side, right? That's one of the big things we work with now is like, I was talking to somebody the other day. It's like, hey, I want my hiring manager to be able to log in. If I have 6 candidates with them, I want them to be able to go in and right there and give me feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down. Like they want that interaction all in one place. Well, if you've got the screening tools, you've got the interview, you can create this portal that has all that information in it. I mean, it's a game changer.
I've
Um,
wanted that for years. I mean, that to me was such an obvious thing because you don't want to spend time going down the wrong trail. You don't want to be spending all your precious time trying to call and work with this idea of what you think the client wants. I mean, you can have a conversation, you can do the intake, write it all up, doesn't matter. You head off and the marketplace either has the people or they don't.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you kind of want that like real-time feedback, like you need to turn left right here because you're going to spend so much time going down that wrong road. If that client could just jump in the portal
yeah.
and look
It's
at 3 people and say, no, 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 no. You know, of course, privacy concerns, you know, addressed and that kind of stuff, blah, blah, blah. But um, to me, that would be a huge, let's talk about building a partnership
yep.
with your client. That would be incredible. That's not going to work for, you know, hourly staffing. That this is a direct hire feature, of course.
Yeah, and I remember I was actually talking with, I don't know if you've ever spoken with Jack Copeland over at Staffing Future, but
I
last year,
have not. Jack Copeland.
yeah. So
What
they
is it?
acquired
Staffing. What is it?
Future. So Jack acquired a company called 3D IQ, and I remember when we implemented Bullhorn at Modus, um, 3D IQ was a candidate presentation format where I could take my candidate through 3D IQ, present it to you through a hyperlink, basically in an email, where I could say, "Hey Tony, I'm going to present Travis to you. Here's a link to his information. You could log in, look at his resume, thumbs up, thumbs down, what you like, what you don't like. Would you like to set an interview? Give me the time." Boom, right? This was 6, 7 years ago, right? And it was funny getting the pushback then of, oh, well, I'm scared of it being spam. I don't want to click on a hyperlink. Like all the pushback I got from even my own internal team of using it when we were doing the pilot. And then I look at what gets done today, right? And it's, that's okay, cool. I'll click on it right now. Like I don't even, people don't slow down, right? It's the Uber thing. Don't get in a car with a stranger. Now you pick a stranger on your phone and get in the car with them,
You're
right?
paying a stranger to come pick you up.
You go stay in somebody's random house, like I just did this last week in the mountains, right? It's awesome. I stay there for a week and I
Oh, I
leave.
saw that. You went to Western. So wait, where did you go in Western North Carolina?
We go to a little town called Waynesville. So my mom was born up there.
I
I've
know
been going
exactly where
my
that
entire
is.
life,
That's
and
one of the cutest towns. So for anyone who's trying to figure out where Waynesville is, it's about 45 minutes west of Asheville, roughly.
yep,
It's the last. Well, if you're entering Western North Carolina, it's literally the biggest town
yep,
out there.
yeah. No, we had a great
Yeah,
time, but
we
uh,
love that area. We love Waynesville.
yeah,
Very cute.
I would move there tomorrow. My wife's not ready yet, so maybe one of these days.
Western North Carolina has a lot of benefits. A lot of benefits. A lot of great mountains and hiking, and there's rivers and streams everywhere. I mean, it's if you like that kind of vibe, you know, there's a lot of that.
I'm a big mountain golf fan too. That's a much funner experience than Florida. So I really enjoy it up there.
Oh, you're a golfer, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to pull us back on track. So I promised everybody a sort of a blueprint, or you know, how can we get this started? You threw out your kind of opening salvo of you know understanding what you're trying to accomplish, and then trying to put together the tech stack and such. So get us moving back on that track again. Help us understand and use Timpl as a good example. You know,
Yeah.
maybe ask me some questions.
So, I mean, the first thing we would do is sit down and do what we call a tech assessment, right? And that looks at technology, it looks at process, it looks at current state, and then it helps you determine future state. So, when you think about PARQA, how we get involved with a lot of customers, it's that part, right? And some of it's, hey, Travis, we know we need to upgrade our technology. Can you help me figure out kind of a roadmap of where I want to go? Other times it's, hey, Travis, we have the technology. Come in and tell us, are we crazy or are we missing something here? Like, why are we struggling in this area? Right. So it all starts with understanding where you're at today and having that clear strategy and vision of where you want to get to. Um, because you can see it over a lot of companies over time. It's like, oh, hey, cool, shiny toy. Let me add that in. Shiny toy. Let me add that in. Next thing you know, you have this complex tech stack that's not, it's not helping you. It's hurting you. You have a ton of technical debt, right? Versus, if you're sitting on Bullhorn, maybe it is just aligning you with the right marketplace partners. It's getting that right automation strategies in place. It's teaming you up with a candidate IQ to clean up your data. It's just helping you understand, like, hey, where's the key areas of opportunity, right? Everybody wants quickest ROI. So understanding that, but also understanding the big picture of, hey, these are our short-term wins, but our long-term gains are in this area, right? So when we sit down and look at that, we have kind of an architecture map that we have, which lays out what the way we look at a tech stack, right? And it starts with core ATS. It looks at databases. It looks at data. It looks at websites. It looks at job boards. It looks at communications on the back end, from SMS, from telephony, right? Like all of that. So we look at every area to understand, hey, let's map your current tech stack into kind of our architecture map here. Take those pieces, understand what you have, where the gaps are, and then help you create that future state map for what you get to, and then help guide you through that process of getting to there. But it all starts with it's easy to just say, oh man, I want the latest and greatest, but you might not need the latest and greatest. You might just need to leverage what you've been paying for all these years that you've never really taken advantage of, right? And we typically
That's my point.
Yeah.
That literally is my point, Travis. I mean, that's why I wanted you to talk to Bullhorn users in this case, because they have such a huge platform, and chances are you're just not using the database even to its 10%, 20% capability. You're just scratching the surface. You don't have to do some incredible, bolt-ons. You just use the marketplace and just
Yep.
start using some of the tools that they have. And I know they've been messaging me quite a bit, and they're in talks with me trying to figure out, how can we move forward. And, my challenge is, Travis, that because I've been doing these podcasts, I see I see what the potential is.
Yep.
But when you look at, you got everyone in operations, they're so heads down, just doing the work, and you're laughing because it's like, you've got a few people that can see it. They're waving the flag going, guys, we need to be focused on this area over here.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you get the practitioners? You got to get the practitioners to go, they need to have their light bulb moment. How do you do that? How do you help those people?
Yeah. Just clarify, I coughed. I wasn't laughing there, but I do chuckle a little bit because I was part of one of Bullhorn's largest implementations as an end user, right? And it's funny going through, particularly in a large organization, right? We weren't involved very much in it. It was the operations team. And so I remember I got asked to be on the UAT team, and I was sitting in a meeting one day, and they went around the conference room and they said, well, what do you think? And that's a dangerous question with me. Tony, one thing you'll learn, if you ask me a question, I'm going to give you the answer. Sometimes you're not going to like it, but I'm still going to give it to you. And, we'd gone through this process, and we were literally reconfiguring the system to be just like our homegrown system we had already built. So they got to me and they said, Travis, what do you think? I was like, I think we're wasting millions of dollars. Like, why? I was like, because you guys are just reconfiguring the system to act like the old one we already paid for. Let's just stick with it and put a new UI on it and keep moving, right? But even to that point, and I get it, because operations has to work, payroll has to happen, the back office has to be there. Like, those are all super important things. But that whole front end of it, like involving your salespeople, involving your recruiters, like understanding the full picture and the full scope of what's needed. We're doing an implementation right now, and I think we have a workshop today, and it's with the sales leaders, and it's to understand the sales process, right? It's not, we want to understand the recruiter's process. We want to understand the sales process. We want to understand operations, finance. You have to have every element of that in there.
Yes.
And I think I was, I can't remember. I was talking about this, I think, in one of our Learn with PARQA episodes, but it's like, you got to have buy-in and consensus from everybody, right? Like, you're going to have a detractor here or there, but you have to do your best, because it is a group effort and a team effort, and everybody needs to be on the same page with the understanding and the clear goals of, hey, here's what we're trying to accomplish. And you know what? Hey, it might be a little tougher on the sales and recruiting team because we're going to make some big changes on the operation side. It just might be a small tweak because they've done the majority of their work already where you sit today. So just understanding that and having the buy-in from everybody and a clear roadmap makes that a lot easier.
Yeah, I know there's no one single path forward. And I think your point is you just have to bring all the heads together,
Yep.
and find, what future state would you like to be? Although I will say, if those leaders have not been thinking at all about this, to me, that's the challenge, is like, you haven't even thought about what AI can do for you. So you're literally taking someone who's, I don't know why you should be thinking about, how to automate and make your company, make your division. I'm not saying that's our problem, but I can imagine um, you bring people in and they don't know what it's what's capable. So I guess that's where you come in as the consultant and say, well, this is your future state. Let me show you some potential. This is your current state. Let me show you some potential future states.
Yeah, and I think what we said earlier too about like going from crawling to running in the Olympics, right? Typically, the folks that haven't made a whole have thought about it
True.
or invested a lot in it, AI scares them, right? Because it's
Mm.
like this whole new world of AI and agents, and they see robots and fancy Salesforce commercials and things like that, right? Versus there are gains to be made in the middle as you get to that future state, right? That's once we go back to those quick wins. We always identify easy opportunities, right? Maybe you have
I like
automation,
that.
but when we dig into
Quick
automation,
wins.
yeah, we've been with organizations where they had automation. They also had no rules around it. So every recruiter was just dumping people into automations, and we'd find candidates that were getting 300 to 400 emails a month, right?
Oh, good
On the
Lord.
opposite
There you go.
end,
Yeah,
they
you need some guardrails around this.
correct. Or on the other end, you get a welcome to your first day, happy birthday, have a good weekend, and that's it. Like that's just not an experience for a candidate, right? So there's some areas there.
Honestly, when I see that kind of stuff, it's like I
Delete,
kind of roll my eyes. It's
delete.
weak. It's like
Yeah,
you really don't know me. Like you literally like someone just went into the database. It's not a person, but I know a program just ran in the database, and this is the birthday field. Send this. Oh, so touching. Thank you.
my favorite is the LinkedIn.
Random.
The LinkedIn birthdays for me is my favorite. Over I was an early adopter of LinkedIn. I mean, I've from the very beginning I was using LinkedIn 20 plus years ago, and so I've got a ton of connections. And it just all of a sudden, my birthday's in June. Every June, I'm just like, how do I stop this? Like, just can I turn this? Can I check out for a week and then come back in because it's just relentless messages of, some of them are just the standard messages. Some of them are super cheesy, and you know, it's important. One
I
thing I
do
do
think LinkedIn's a dumps. I do think LinkedIn's sort of a dumpster fire these days.
It can be. Yes, it has its moments. That was the other
It
thing.
does have its value. Does have its value, but
Yeah.
I guess I've seen the good, bad, and the ugly, and I've been put in LinkedIn jail before. We've all ended up there. We've all. I was an early adopter too. We got on it. Yeah, I can't believe it's been 20 years. This was way before Microsoft had any ideas of even purchasing it. Yeah,
Way before. And I was going to
way
say too,
before.
that brought up a point that we haven't really talked about is kind of like the ethical use of AI and the proper like professional use of it. And I think LinkedIn brings up a perfect example of that. And you can see it if you post on LinkedIn, the AI generated comments and it's even look, I get it. I use it for content. I use it for ideation. I use it for different things, but it's so obvious for people that are just starting to use it. The posts they put out there, like it screams chat GPT all over it, right? There's just a lot of things there. So I think when we look at it, making sure from
What, the post itself or the comment?
the comment, well, I think people use it to generate content, right? Which is fine. I don't have any issues with that at all. Although clean it up a little bit and don't make, if
Yeah,
it
yeah.
says
I
in
don't
the,
use it. I don't put AI generated
yeah,
content
yeah,
like like I just do original content on
yeah.
LinkedIn.
Well, I know if it says in the fast-paced world of staffing and recruiting, comma, that's 100% chat GPT. That's where it came from. Right. So there's some regular statements that it makes that you learn over time, but the comments on it too. Like I see a lot of folks that are just at wit's end because they'll make a post and then it's just AI comment after AI comment after AI comment, just trying to spam the algorithm there to get impressions. So it's definitely a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the Wild West. People are still trying to figure out how to harvest all the data from LinkedIn and use it in their cold emailing campaigns. There's all kinds of things that are happening, and that's a conversation for another time. Well, listen, as we start to wrap up on the personal note, how is it that you're a Jaguar fan? I see you've got a very unique image back there, the very first home game for the Jags.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Jacksonville. I actually grew up on the river right across from the Jag Stadium. So
That's
now
1995, isn't it? That the inaugural year.
1995. So my father-in-law was worked for one of the minority owners of the Jaguars. So I grew up going to games. Went every Sunday.
It's awesome. You got let's see. You had Mark Brunell.
Yep.
You had who was that great left tackle?
Tony Baselli.
Baselli. That's it.
Man,
fun fact. The year 1995 is when Steve Largent back here got inducted into the Hall of Fame. I went to the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame game was the inaugural game between the Panthers and guess who?
The Jaguars. I remember
the
that
Jaguars.
Yeah,
I was at that game.
Yeah, so I'm a native. Like I said, I was born and raised here in Jacksonville, so it's kind of in the blood, and by default, they're not easy to root for.
No, they're not.
The time,
no, they're not.
We stay loyal.
God bless you. You probably do deserve a championship for all the hell you've been through.
You've
had some good years, though. You've had some good years. You've had some good teams, some good players, some good runs. So another interesting side fact here as we wrap up. I live in Cartersville, Georgia. Does that ring any bells for you?
Yes.
And how so?
Oh, geez.
This is a live test right here on the podcast.
I know. As soon as you say it, I'm going to know it.
This is going to burn your chaps when you realize
it's
Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence. I was going to say, I knew it. Like it was on the top of my head. It's
there
Trevor
it was. Trevor Lawrence went to high school here in Cartersville, and then he went on to Clemson and is now the starting quarterback for the Jags. Okay, folks, what's the best way for folks to reach you, Travis?
So I'm out on LinkedIn. I'm definitely open for LinkedIn connections. My email is very straightforward. It's just tweb@parqa.com, PARQA. One of those avenues is very easy to reach me.
I think you should be PARQA. I just, listen. It just sounds a little more fancy.
I think
that's fine. That's
the company
fine.
started in Minneapolis. It's frigid up there and snowing the whole time. I think that was
exactly.
The plan.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thank you, Tony.
And then I will edit this little bit out. And boom.